Maybe we can turn that into a scavenger hunt. You tell us which presidents are out there and we'll go look for them. Hey everyone, I consider it my good fortune this morning to introduce Jody Hamblett. Jody returned to public broadcasting in August of 2023 when she was named the general manager of WOT-FM, as you know, our local NPR affiliate station. She's a graduate of Wright State University, and her latest public broadcasting experience was at Blue Ridge Public Radio, where she oversaw the work of 14 stations in 4 states, including Tennessee, had a station in Upper East Tennessee. Jody also worked in public broadcasting in Vermont and in Texas, and spent 5 years at the helm of the NPR Executives Association. She expresses an interest in public or personal and local journalism. Listen to this, during her time at Blue Ridge, listener revenue increased 67%, and underwriting revenue grew 34%. So if you're supporting NPR, get ready to write a bigger check. She has been awarded the Gracie Allen Award for Outstanding Public Programming and the Gabriel Award, which is given by the Catholic Academy for Communication Arts Professionals to recognize outstanding artistic achievement which entertains, uplifts, and nourishes the human spirit. In her personal life, Jody has a daughter and 3 children by marriage, I like to call them, with her husband, Jason. They also have 2 dogs. In her spare time, she likes to garden, knit, crochet, cook, and bake. And like me, she likes all genres of music. And I had to laugh when I read this about her, because she says on any given day, you might find her listening to Bach or George Strait, Journey, or George Jones. She's been at WOT now for about 15 months, and I don't know about you, but I'm interested in hearing how it's going. Jody Hamblett.
It's an honor to be here. I've heard wonderful things about this club. Your reputation is definitely out there. I have to say, I'm a little nervous, and that rarely happens. I think it's the podium. I never get to stand on a podium. I'm thrilled to be here. One of the things that, Nat called and said, what don't people know about you? Well, I'll be celebrating my 3rd wedding anniversary on Sunday, and I'm married my husband, Jason, and I'm married into a loyal volunteer family. He's never lived in Tennessee before. He didn't go to UT, just it was something that him and his dad, when they moved from Connecticut to South Carolina at the time, they were going to be volunteer fans. So much so that my oldest stepson's first name is Peyton. Does anyone want to take a guess on what his middle name is?
Smoke.
Nealon. I am not kidding. I am not kidding. So when I interviewed for the job, I did not tell them that, because I thought maybe they'd think I was some kind of stalker or something.
Maybe I'll have no trouble getting into UT.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Peyton doesn't want to go to college. He's going to do something much more hands-on. He's going to become a welder. So, but my oldest daughter, Amelia, is 24. She's adulting in Ohio, where I grew up. And she has her heart set on becoming a forensic psychologist. So, and then my 3 bonus children, Aubrey, Peyton, and Jacob, guess his middle name? Eli. That's the Manning thing, I know. I have so many little anecdotes. So I am thrilled to be here. When I was running that national executives organization within public radio, I got to peek at a lot of different stations and meet a lot of people. And I always thought, if WOT comes open, that's a job I would want. And when I met Jason, I said, my dream job is Knoxville. And he's like, well, I love the volunteers. And don't you know, my predecessor decided it was time to retire. So here I am. I'm really bad at PowerPoint, so I'm just gonna have to wait. So I want to talk about honoring the past, acknowledging the present, and looking towards the future. In another 2 weeks, WOT will be celebrating our 75th anniversary, And from my work in public radio, I can tell you that many stations are barely approaching their 50th anniversary. So this is Ayers Hall, as you probably all know, and the transmitter for the station at the time was on top of Ayers Hall. The station was started by Dr. Wright, and we have been in contact with his daughter, Marcia, and she tells the story of when her mother would drive her to campus to drop her off with her father. He would open the basement window and she would hand the kids over to Dr. Wright to hang out at the radio station. I can tell you that our technology has definitely changed since that time, but we are very, very honored to carry on the legacy of not only working for the community of East Tennessee, but also working with the students of the College of Communication and Information. So WOT has what we call a big stick in the radio business. We have an incredible and very powerful signal that reaches most of East Tennessee. I was driving yesterday and I could hear the station up in Johnson City. So we take our role as public broadcasters very seriously. One of the things that I think it's important for you to understand about me, I started my broadcasting career in commercial radio and television. I got the job that every broadcast major wants to get, and I was a TV news reporter. And I learned very quickly that it wasn't all it was cut out to be. And I saw a lot of things at the age of 24 that I didn't think I'd see in my entire life. I was the crime reports reporter. And I very quickly realized that I wanted to do something else. And being able to work in public broadcasting and public media has really driven me, because I've always wanted to be able to give back to my community, and public broadcasting has allowed me to do that. So being here in East Tennessee, I can let you know pretty much anything you want to know about our audience. Thank you to the Nielsen Company. We have about 78,000 people who listen to the radio station each week. I can tell you their ages. I can tell you a lot about their demographics. I can tell you that they are influential. I can tell you that they are cultured. And I can tell you that they're engaged in their communities. And that's really important, and that's really the mainstay of what we know about our audience, is that our audience cares. And I'll come back to that in a second. I have to look at my notes just because I always forget what slide I put next. So WOT is about a $2 million organization. And as you can see, if the right slide is up, the bulk of that comes from the community. 40% from our listeners, about 10% from local businesses in the community who choose to advertise with us, although it's not called advertising, it's called underwriting. We do get a rather substantial appropriation from the University of Tennessee, and that is something that I have never experienced before. I've always been at community stations where we are responsible for every single dime that we raise. I wouldn't want to have it any other way than to hook my wagon to that big orange horse out there, because, or dog, right, Smokey? That appropriation helps to pay for part of our personnel, and it also provides benefits for our employees that I can tell you they would not have at any other station, commercial or public. And our facilities are donated. We also get anywhere between 7.5% to 10% of our money from the federal government, and that's the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Part of our mission is to cover our region and to cover not only the news of the region, but the arts and culture. So when I talk to my staff and my team about being on the radio, I always tell them you have to know your audience, as I just laid out for you. So I'm going to ask, how many of you have listened to WOT before? Can I see a raise of hands? All right, that's pretty fair. How many of you listen to it for classical music or jazz? How many of you listen to it for local news and NPR news? What did I not mention that you listen to it for?
Yes.
Like, wait, don't tell me, right? Splendid Table. Oh, who else misses Car Talk? I do. I will always maintain that Car Talk is not a show about cars. It is a show about relationships. So we have a lot of the local folks that work for us. You probably recognize Todd Steed on the left, Melanie Dodson on the right. I am pleased to tell you that for the first time, we have a full-time afternoon classical host. This is Matthew Motley. He graduated from the University of Georgia in May. We're not holding that against him. We are painting his office orange and indoctrinating him into being a ball. He is a smart, just happy-go-lucky guy, and he has just been fabulous to have on our team, and I look forward to seeing what he's going to do in the coming years. One of the things that has always driven me has been local news, and I think that probably goes back to my first experience as a reporter. It was a little town north of Dayton, Ohio, and every day I would take my little tape recorder and I would go down to the police station, and I would go down to the fire station, and I would go to the city council meetings and the county commission meetings. And what I learned there was the importance of building relationships. And while that's something that we talk a little bit about when we teach journalism students, it's not something that they learn until they really get on the ground. And I know that while many people do come to us for music and for NPR news, they're going to stay with us because we're going to connect them to their community here in East Tennessee. So I thought it would be good for you to see some of the folks that you hear their voices. Jackie Sieber, Riley Thompson, and here you're going to see some of our students. So in the last year, we've integrated into the College of Communication and Information, and what that has meant is for the first time in a very, very long time, students are working right alongside the professionals at WUOT. In the past year, we have won numerous awards, the Edward R. Murrow. We won a number of awards from the Society of Professional Journalists. And in this photo, the two individuals on either end are professors, but the rest of them are graduate students who have worked with us. So this presentation has been done for a couple of weeks, which is out of character for me, but I had to redo it this weekend because of everything that has been going on. We have a very young news team, and on the last day of our membership drive, we stopped fundraising, and I sent them out in the field to cover what I felt were going to be floods. And I don't have a crystal ball, but after living in Asheville for as long as I did, I knew that they were already flooding, and so I told them that morning to come with boots on, because I think that there would be flooding. Little did I know that it was going to be the devastating flooding that we had. So this is just one way that I see WUOT expanding in this region over time. You'll see here pictures that our reporters took in the field of the devastation that happened just here in East Tennessee, particularly in Unicoi and Carter counties. But not only do we want to report on the things that are happening, we really want to take it a step further. We want to report on the things that people need. How can you help? You are a listener. How can people get help? We have all of those resources that we put on the air and we put online. We see it as our responsibility to be the public watchdog, to hold our elected officials accountable. And in this instance, we wrote the story that there were a number of questions about why the governor had not declared a state of emergency prior to when he did. Most of the other states had declared those states of emergency long before we did here in Tennessee. So we have a very young newsroom. We have a very small newsroom. We are in the process of hiring a news director right now. And then we'll be adding 2 more reporters to go along with that. The other thing is, and this hasn't been announced publicly yet, but we are part of a new initiative that NPR is doing. There was a $1 million grant given to NPR to create the Mid-South Appalachian Newsroom. This is a partnership between 7 stations in the region, 2 in Tennessee, most of the rest in Kentucky, and 1 station in West Virginia. And I will tell you that if it wasn't for this burgeoning partnership, I don't think we would have been able to do the coverage that we did because the paper hasn't even been signed yet, but the stations in Kentucky sent us a reporter and made a full-time editor available to us for a week. And without that, I don't know if we could have covered what we covered. So I'm excited about this partnership, and it will be announced in hopefully just a couple of weeks. The region that the newsroom is going to cover is the region that I've circled in yellow. But besides covering all of the floods, I remember walking around that week and thinking there's got to be something more that we can do. And I was thinking a lot about our audience and what I know about our audience, that they care, that they're civically minded, they vote, they help out their neighbors. So we decided to do a fundraiser. And in one day, we were able to raise $43,000 in a partnership with the East Tennessee Foundation. The money went directly to ETF and will be given to the communities that need it the most for rebuilding. So it's something that I'm proud of. We had to turn on a dime, and my staff did not blink when I said, hey, we just finished the pledge drive, I want to do another one. If we had to get special dispensation from the SEC, which they gave us, and it was a good day. It was a good day for us, and we hope that it will make just a little bit of a difference in our community. So a year ago, we did join the College of Communication and Information, and up until that point, WOT kept getting moved around the university, but Dean Joe Mazur really has a vision, and it's his vision that was the other reason that I wanted to come to WUOT. And it was this idea that all of the student media and the professional media on the campus would come together under one umbrella called the Media Center. So we are the only professional media outlet at this point, but you can see all of the other student media up there. We now, for the first time, actually all work together and communicate. Last spring, we did some coordinated coverage. It was a test balloon to see if we could pull it off of doing a housing, series of stories. For the first time, we are all sitting down and meeting every other week and talking about the things that we're covering. And from that, we've really been able to reframe the student experience. What you see here is something that came out of one of those meetings that just boom. The students down at WUTK, which is the student-run radio station, said, we've got press passes for the first time to the Big Ears Festival, and we're so excited that we get to cover it. And I went back up to WOT and I said to Todd Steed, you might want to give them a call and give them some tips of how to navigate things. Well, not only did they do that, but they actually did a podcast, and we were all blown away by the students and the preparation and their knowledge. And it's just been really exciting. And, I thought when we started working with students that we would be the mentors, but in many ways, everyone at WOT has learned so much from working with students. They've been able to get us to look at things in a different way. They certainly embrace technology. I mean, we try, but you can't keep up these days, and the students just are able to do so many things. One of our part-time reporters is still a senior in college. His name is Pierce Gentry, and when he finished up his internship last spring, he said, I gotta go back and I have to work at CARM. And I was like, I'll hire you. And so he's working part-time for WOT. He's going to school full-time. And when he graduates, he will have a job with us. And I love that because he grew up in Knoxville. He wants to stay in Knoxville, and he is a gifted reporter, and he's so passionate. And, I have to say that when I sent him out to cover these floods, and I'm going to get a little emotional, when I was 24 years old, I was told that reporters don't feel things. You have to maintain this sort of stoic presence. And every day that Pierce and Jackie came back, I would sit them down and say, how are you doing? And more often than not, one of them cried. And they cried because they felt for the people that they were reporting on, because these were their friends and neighbors. And I told them I didn't ever want them to lose that connection. I think it's important. I think that's the difference between public media and the rest of media, is that we live and breathe and go to school and have kids in the community we're reporting on. We're not just here as a 2-year stop and moving on. So we are going to continue to invest in our news organization. We are going to continue to invest in students. And I am thrilled to be at the helm of this organization. And I'm going to stop there and leave time for questions, because people who listen to public radio always have questions. Yes.
You said you knew your audience. What age is your audience?
Right now, the average age of our listener is 66 years old. And the next question would be, does that concern me? Yeah, it does. It does. So how do we attract a younger audience, but not alienate our current audience? And that's our challenge right now. And that's not just our challenge here in Knoxville, but that's our challenge across the country as public radio stations. So my hope is that as we work with students, we'll be able to kind of bridge that divide a little bit.
Talk a little bit about WUOT2.
Sure. That's our HD channel. Does everyone know what HD is? HD radio? Okay, I'm getting some. Oh, HD. So can I talk about HD2? So a wise engineer who spoke my language, English, not engineering ease, told me that HD radio is like the interstate. So 91.9 is your interstate, and the HD channels are the berm on each side of the interstate, and that's where the HD channels live. So you have to have a special radio that receives HD2. It's not caught on as much as we all had hoped that it would. We continue to program the station. The listing at any given time is maybe 500 people. We do get that measurement, and so we don't put a lot of effort into it at this point, but it is an alternative for people who have HD radios, and most cars are coming out with HD radios now. So does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay, all right.
Well, actually, can you talk a little bit about the programming that's on it? Because I know it's different.
It's counter-programmed to what people hear on 91.9. So when we have Morning Edition on, there's a classical music program. When we have classical on, there are NPR news programs. Trying to provide people with that option. In a perfect world, I would love to have 2 big sticks. One that would be all news and information and entertainment, and the other that would be classical music, because then we could almost be all things to all people in the area. It's hard. There are not a lot of stations left like WUOT. Most of them have gone all news or all classical. I was at one of those stations, and I thought it was going to solve my problems, that I was going to have 2 radio stations, but it didn't. So I think that WUOT reflects Knoxville in so very many ways, the way it is. Yes, ma'am.
So when I'm not around here, I listen to it on the webcast. How do you get credit for people who are not here but listening to WUOT?
Do you listen to it on the app?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have an app. You can download it from the App Store, and you just click on that. We get statistics from that as well.
I'm
And
younger than 66, I just want to lower the number.
okay, all right, well, that's good to know. Unfortunately, for the people who listen on the web, we don't require you to put your age in, so, that's a good point, that's a good point. Other questions?
Yeah, I spent 15 years working in Buffalo, New York. I was on the board with WNED and chairman of the board for 4 years. Don Boswell is who I work with.
Mhm.
That is unusual because the television stations and the radio stations are together, and they have a pretty expansive newsroom with that too. We've got, as best I can tell, 2 public television stations in the general area. Is there any collaboration that goes on between the 2? Are they separate empires?
Okay, so the question is there any collaboration between public TV and public radio in this region? No, there is not, but there is currently collaboration between our East Tennessee Public Television Station and the College of Communication and Information. And my hope is that we'll be able to partner in the future. There are 3 types of public broadcasting organizations. There's a joint licensee, which is the TV and radio under one roof. There is the university licensee, which we're licensed to the university. And then there's a community licensee, which is where I'm used to working, where you answer to a board of directors that are elected to serve in the public good. So anything I said that didn't ring true for you as a former board member?
Well, the thing I think is great is public broadcasting has, and Apollos has a very positive view on what people think, how they deliver the news. And it may lean a little one way, but it's not the extremes too. And the second thing is, we also were the public broadcasting for Toronto, which has made us a little bit unique too.
Yeah.
So we had programs, BBC, Canadian Broadcasting, and it was a fabulous opportunity to learn. And the other thing I didn't know is how much they depend on producing material.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
You know, NPR programming is expensive, but local programming is more expensive because the human capital, and all of you who know businesses know that. I had the opportunity, being in Vermont, we served Montreal. And so it does give you a little bit of a different sense of you know, different cultures and things like that. So, but we are here to serve this community. We're gonna be rolling out a listening initiative to get out into the communities. One of the things that I feel is really important is, while I'm looking at listeners in this room, there are a lot of people in this community who aren't listeners. And that doesn't mean that it isn't our responsibility to cover the challenges that they're facing. And so in the next year, I hope that you will notice that we are covering the challenges that are happening in East Tennessee as we grow, as housing becomes more challenging, the economy, and whatever else our listening tour turns up to us, so. Other questions?
Jody, I have one. When you look at the history of WUOT, I mean, sometimes I think of WUOT as doing some of the better, like 3 series of news reporting. Is there anything about the history of WUOT that is especially spoke to you as you looked at that station?
Well, I think that the fact that there's an extreme value placed on the people who work there. There's an extreme value in what it means to be from this area. I knew that if I was gonna move one more time, it was gonna have to be for a special place. And I felt that this is that special place, but also to be at a station that so values its history and 75 years, and a university that understands the value of serving outside of its borders. And that's what we really do, is there's a firewall between the university and WUOT. Never do they dictate what we do cover and don't cover. I will say that in the past, the station has not covered the university for whatever reason, but when you have a university that's a main economic driver and employer, you have to cover them. And so just a couple of weeks ago, we covered something at the university, and someone emailed me and said, oh, I know somebody held a gun to your head and made you report that. And that doesn't happen. I mean, I know Chancellor Plowman listens, but she certainly does not pick up the phone to call me and tell me what we should be covering and what we shouldn't. So, and Dean Mazur feels very strongly about making sure that we maintain our individual identity and our individual editorial integrity. So.
Your slide about finances, I was kind of surprised that we're only 7.5% of the budget was grants.
Mm-hmm.
Is that lower than it used to be, for lack of a better word, or are you doing better fundraising in other areas so that just looks small?
I've looked at the past audits for the station and it's in the ballpark of 7 to 10%. I'll be honest with you, the revenue for the station is low for the region and for the population that we have in the region and for the listening. And I don't know why that is yet. I am a data-driven person. I look at trends over time. So I'm not sure. They may have gotten one-time grants that might have elevated that number, but I believe in relying on the community for funding and
We did give her the heads.
That was a disclosure.
so, thank you for having me. It has been my pleasure.